Hello everybody. And sorry. I don't know why I do these things. No, nor do I. Hello lovelies, and welcome to the November 2025 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. I feel like I'm far too close to the camera. Let me adjust that. That's better. This is a podcast filmed in the UK on the south coast. My name's Lesley and you are very welcome. Some are coming back, some are new. Everyone is welcome here. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks also to those who've commented and liked and subscribed and all those things. I love to hear from you, so I really appreciate your input. I should have been at Whitstable Wool Show, Whitstable, with my friend Claire, and I let her down badly because by the time I went to get tickets they'd all sold out, so we didn't go. Now I'm delighted for the organisers, I'm delighted for the vendors. I hope they all had a really successful show, and the fact that it's sold out meant they should have had a really successful show, so I hope it went well for everyone, and I hope it's doing so well that they're going to have another one next year, maybe slightly bigger, I don't know. But we missed it. We went for a coffee and cake instead at a very nice farm close to us. But yes, I didn't go to the wool show, which was a disappointment. But as you can see, I'm not short of yarn. And this is called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast because I rarely have enough in the same colour. And that would have only got worse if I'd gone to Whitstable. Because I tend to buy things on the, oh, that's pretty basis, rather than, what have I got in my stash? What will this go with? Do I have a sweater quantity? Don't worry about those sorts of things, just, oh, pretty. So yes, that's the name of the podcast and the reason for it. Because I tend to have a lot of single skeins or one or two skeins, a lot of my makes are multicoloured. And so we have stripes, different yarns put together. Anything that I'm wearing that's handmade, comme ça, I will put all the details in the notes below. This is a drops pattern called the Flora Viola. I finished it a couple of months ago and I was not impressed with the pattern writing on it. It was a bit vague and I prefer things to be a little more concrete. The reason why I like them to be more absolute is because I like to change things. But you kind of need to know what to hang your hat on to then make the changes against that. And this was a little more vague than I would prefer. Having said that, I do like the finished item. I do wear it. I did modify it. And yeah, it's all good stuff. So this and all the yarns that I used are listed in the notes below. I knit, spin, weave, crochet, all those things. So I'll be showing you bits and pieces of all sorts of things. And first of all, I'm going to show you some spinning. And this fibre was a gift from the lovely Kathy. And normally I put my fibre, my yarn, once I've spun it, I put it into skeins. But this was just too pretty to not put into a cake because I'm going to use it fairly quickly, I feel. So thank you, Kathy. It is wild hair fibre. And it's in the Grateful Dyed colourway. And as someone who names her podcasts after songs and puns of songs, naming this as a pun on a band makes me very happy. In addition to the fabulous colours. Now I was really pleased with how the colour management worked on this and that I've managed to retain the individual colours. Excuse the way I've spun it, that's wound it, that's not clever, but the colours have pretty much maintained their integrity. Normally, if you want to do that, you would spin quite a fine single and then chain ply it because that enables you to keep your colours fairly well together. I didn't do that, I just split the fibre into two, spun the singles and then plied them together. But I split it fairly evenly and spun it fairly evenly. Now this is Falklands Merino, which is one of my favourite fibres to spin. And regular viewers know that every year I go over to Eastbourne to a very small fibre and yarn festival near me. And there's a very small company, it doesn't have an internet presence, but they do little braids of Falklands Merino, which I tend to buy each year. And I love the way it drafts. And this, it suits me. You know, I'm not saying it's better or worse than any other type of fibre. It's not as soft as some of the other merinos you can get, but the way it drafts suits my method. So I'm very pleased with how these colours have maintained their integrity, and I will be making something with this soon. Don't know what. Might be part of something else, might be a hat. I want to try and use the whole skein if I can. So that's why I'll probably put it as part of something larger, but we shall see. There will be knitting and crochet later, but I have been doing a fair amount of weaving. But there has been a little bit of crochet. I've been using up a lot of my double knitting weight cotton yarn. And forgive me, friends who watch this, that you're going to see this later, because these are going to be part of your Christmas presents. But these are not your Christmas presents. Your Christmas presents will be wrapped in these. But I made a few washcloths to go with some other cloths that I'm making. So just crochet, didn't follow a pattern, just did a few stitch patterns. So this is in double crochet, back loop only, or was it front loop only? One loop only. That would be single crochet in US terminology. This is in trebles, UK terminology, and it's just front post, back post alternated. And this is in double crochet, so single crochet in US terminology, and it's just one stitch light, one stitch dark, and then alternated on the way back with a border. So yeah, just a few washcloths, small dishcloths, whatever people want to use them for, to go with cleaning cloths that I've been making. Now you saw similar colourway to this last month, and these at the moment are, I've taken them off the loom, they've not been blocked. I'm going to put them through the washing machine. All the advice is wash them first before you trim any ends, sew up any seams. So that's what I'm doing. So my table plus chair warping setup, it's not very sophisticated, but it works. So I have my dining table, I have the loom at one end when I'm warping, and then I have a chair side on that I use to wrap the warp around. And that makes two cloths. So we've got a gap here in the middle, but I have these, and you'll see them later in the month once they've been washed, and then I'll trim them, seam them, and so on. I've got a few sets. These are much narrower, as you can see. Just messed this up, I think. Might even sew them together to make a table runner. Don't know. But it's fun to do. And then these are a better width. And as you can see, I've striped the warp, and then I've actually striped the weft blue and green on this one. But the colours are so similar you probably can't see the difference, which is fair enough. But these are making sort of better size tea towels. They're not uniform, as you can see. I was using a white weft and then I went over to this dark green. They're cleaning cloths. I've enjoyed making them, I've enjoyed playing around with the colours, but I'm not making designs out of these. I'm just having fun with the cotton yarn that I've got, hoping to make something enjoyable and useful. Enjoyable for me to make, useful for someone to use. So that's the plan. And it's got through quite a bit of the cotton yarn, which is good. So I've got another pair on the loom at the moment. This does look more uniform. That won't last. The first one of these two, because this is the second, is fairly uniform. This second one is going to be more mixed in pattern. And yes, I do have a frame behind me for my loom, but I prefer to use it against a table rather than on the frame. So that's why it's not sitting on there. Yeah, so again, once that's finished, I'll wash them all, show you them washed, and then seam them and show you what they look like finished. That's the plan. I think that's all I have for the intro, but before I finish this section, A big thank you to everyone who won prizes in the modification mal. All the prizes were claimed really quickly, so thank you for that. The yarn prizes are on their way. The pattern prizes have all been sent to the winners, so thank you everyone. And thank you to everyone who took part. I'm sorry that I can't do prizes for everyone because I'm so grateful to everyone who is taking part in that. But thank you, and thank you to those who claimed their prizes quickly. Next month, and I will do a reminder at the end of this podcast, I will be doing, as I often do, the December mal. I'm not going to do a daily Vlogmas. I'll probably do a weekly one. I'll have an Advent to open, so that's exciting for me. Might not be exciting for you, sorry. So I'll be recording every day, but I'll just post once a week. But I will be doing the December mal. As with all my make-alongs, this is run on Ravelry, so if you're unable to use Ravelry, please email me at notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com. And the idea is, during a very busy time of year, to take a bit of time, hopefully every day if you can, just to do something that you enjoy, a bit of crafting. And I tend to keep this to the woolly crafts, so knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, anything that uses or makes yarn. I know some people do other crafts as well, and that's lovely, but I'm going to keep this kind of, you've got to have some parameters, and these are the ones that I've chosen, so I hope that's okay with everyone. So post your progress, your thoughts on the mal thread, which I'll open up on Ravelry on the 1st of December. I'll keep it running through to the 31st of December, and like I say, the hope is just to be able to take a bit of time, with a bit of luck, every day, even if it's just a few minutes, to have a bit of downtime, a bit of time for you, a bit of time when you're not rushing around, but just taking a few moments to craft and do something that will hopefully bring you a bit of peace. Again, I'll remind you of that at the end of the podcast when I do the roundup of whips, but I will be running that in December. Now, some of you may have Advents to work on, and some of you may just be wanting to finish gifts or whatever it is you're working on. Just join in if you'd like to, and there will be prizes which I'll announce in January. Yes, just thinking about that, it'll be in January. Yes, sorry, vague news here. I really must go from this section, I think, and I'll see you in the next. Cheers. Hello lovelies. I was weaving some dishcloths, tea towels, hand towels, whatever you want to use them for. A bit big for dishcloths perhaps, but towels of some description. And I have now finished them. So I started off by just seaming along the edges, just as a bit of security. And then I pressed them, folding them over, and have a double fold there and seam them. So they're a little bit clunky. These are double knitting weight yarn, so they are sort of thicker, which is why I'm thinking hand towels more than tea towels. But I used a finer weight cotton for the weft, so that was more of a 4-ply or fingering type weight rather than DK, to give me a bit more for folding it over, because my lovely sewing machine is a little domestic sewing machine, so it was struggling a little with a lot of thickness of this fabric. In an ideal world, you would tuck the ends in rather than have a straight fold on the edge there. But it just wouldn't go under the feet of my sewing machine, so I'm sticking with them as is. So we have a collection of them done. So I'll just go through them pretty quickly. They're all pretty much the same. The yarns used, we have some sugar and cream, and we had that in 2 different colourways. I also have some Patterns North America Layla, which is a white cotton with an uneven texture to it, and Rowan Summer Light in a variety of colours. And there was another one as well, Katia Degradé Cotton, so a selection. So, number 1, and you can see here different colours in the warp. So this was the colour that I was using last time with this darker blue, And then when I ran out of that, I went into more pastel-y colours, or plain white as this is. This is the Layla. So that's the first one. These are all going to be very similar, but I'm going to show you them anyway. Here's the second. So this was on the same warp. All very similar. Then I've got some more obvious plaid patterned. So this is using the Layla and the Summerlight. And these look more like traditional tea towels because of the way that I warped them with these wider bands at the sides. But again, just folded over and sewn at the edges after doing hem stitch to secure the fabric on the loom before I cut it off. Same again, shorter. And then the one I'm most pleased with, again because I was playing around with the warp, is this one. So we've got this red colour, we've got a brown colour in the warp, and then these pinstripes, if you like, of white. And I thought they gave a nice effect to the overall fabric. Didn't necessarily weave them all that well. I hadn't realised on the underside I wasn't picking up all of the warp threads, so I've got a few kind of loose bits there. But perfectly serviceable. And considering how long it is since I've woven anything until I started doing these, I'm fairly pleased with how they all came out. I'm now tackling a larger project, which I will show you as we progress even, and that is using my handspun to make a blanket, a woven blanket. I'm not using my handspun for the warp because it's very uneven. Struggling with words, I do apologise. It's very uneven in its thickness, and I don't want it to get too worn as you move the reed up and down and it rubs against the fabric. I'm also not entirely convinced that my handspun would be strong enough. The warp you use very much under tension, and so you are sort of pulling the yarn quite taut, and I'm not convinced that my handspun would stand up to that. So I'm using commercial yarns for the warp and then handspun for the weft, and I'll show you that later in the month. Cheers. Hello lovelies. Now you may be looking at me thinking, Les, why are you wearing that oversized hat? It doesn't quite fit you. Doesn't matter what I do with it, it doesn't look right. That's because it's not for me. Oh gosh, I've been wearing it for too long. It's lovely and warm. This is the hat I made for himself, the man with the large head, which is why it's baggy on me, because my head isn't small, but his is unusually large. Himself bought me some yarn back from a trip to Ireland, and I'd asked him not to buy yarn, but he did. So I thought, right, that's it, I'm making you a hat, and this is what I've made. I showed it to you last month when it was still showing predominantly stripy, but because it has the brim, it doesn't show as many stripes. Not that that's a problem, but... So I used the Ross hat by Ross Rochester. Couldn't remember his name last month. Smells Like Yarn, I think is his kind of trading name. And I used the double knitting weight numbers, but I used a larger needle size because these yarns are Aran. They are both by Atlantic Coast Yarns, and this is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sonas Irish Aran. It's 100% wool. And this is Corib, which is 97% wool, 3% cashmere. Very nice yarns. Have almost like a felted feel to them. Very woolly. Perfect for a hat, which I'm hoping will be very warm for himself. This is slightly softer, as you would expect with the cashmere in it. I used, they're 100 gram balls I think, and I've got 28 grams of this left, so that's 72 grams used, and 39 of this left, so 61 grams used. But like I say, this is a larger than average hat. For a man with a larger than average brain, that's what we'll tell him. The Ross hat is originally a stocking stitch hat with just a short ribbed brim. I went bigger in every sense and did a 2x2 rib and went longer than the original pattern so that himself can roll up the brim to give a double layer over the ears. So very simple hat. Now I'm not sure if the pattern actually is top down or bottom up, but I made it top down. Did a stocking stitch start, as you can see, to just make it easier to incorporate the increases into the pattern by keeping it plain, and then just changed to the 2x2 rib and knitted down until I thought this is getting ridiculously long. So I hope it is long enough, but if it's not, I have yarn left over. I can add to it. So that is it. The Ross hat, a variant thereof, in this Atlantic Coast Yarns wool. I hope he doesn't lose it. Hello lovelies. I showed you that lovely rainbow handspun that I made from the gorgeous fibre that Kathy sent me. Thank you again, Kathy. And I said I might put it into a garment or make a hat. I made a hat. Ta-da! It's a crochet hat. It's actually my own pattern. I was looking through Ravelry for hat patterns using the amount of yarn that I had and found one and thought, I designed one like that years ago. I mean, 15 years ago I think, and it was sold to a magazine. They called it Scott. Beam me up Scotty, I don't know. And it's a very simple crochet hat with short rows to give the shaping. So you work side to side, short rows to give the shaping. If you're interested in it, drop me an email and I'll send it to you. I could just put it on Ravelry, but I haven't yet. So if I don't put it on Ravelry, email me if you want the pattern, I'll send it to you. But it worked rather fine. Now it does look like a very small hat, but it is very stretchy. So it's made a very thick woolly beanie, and you can go for the subtle colouring or you can go for the brights. Guess which I like. So yes, very happy with that. I'm calling it my hospital hat because I was in hospital for a routine procedure, something that I need done every 6 months, that has to be done under theatre conditions. Now it's done under a local anaesthetic, so I don't have to be knocked out or anything like that, but it's under theatre conditions, so you have to get there early in the morning, and so I'd taken this as a project to do. Because my procedure was under a local anaesthetic, not a general, I'm fairly far down the list because I don't have to spend any time in recovery afterwards. That increases the danger of the theatres, because I was in theatre 7, I don't know how many the hospital's got, but the theatres, facing emergency procedures, which is what happened. So we had to be there at 7:30 in the morning, but I actually was taken down to theatre for 4:45 in the afternoon. Hadn't eaten all day. I was allowed to drink. I was allowed to sip water, thankfully, because it was a local anaesthetic, so I didn't have to worry about the problems that you get with a general and eating. But it meant I finished this about 2 o'clock and it was the only project I had with me. So yes, it was a long day, a quite frustrating day. I had my phone with me. I didn't take a book, so I thought I've got my phone. But by then I was beginning to worry about the amount of charge left on my phone, because of course it is a communication device, so I needed it to get hold of people, to let himself know that I was ready to be collected, all those things. Yes, lesson learned. Next time, take more projects, take a book, and make sure you've got your phone charger in your bag. But this is done, and I'm very pleased with it. So it's a lovely, thick, warm hat, and it used pretty much all of the yarn. I had this much left. I could possibly have got another, definitely one more row. I don't think I would have got 2, which is what I wanted, because I wanted to do a ridge, basically. So rather than risk it, well, I had time to unpick it, didn't I? But I have a little nugget left, which I shall put into my hand spun blanket. Words, long time forming. So as I say, simple crochet. It uses double crochet stitch, UK terminology, single crochet, US terminology, back loop only, worked side to side to give it this rib, and that gives it the stretchiness. Short rows, so I think I started off with 60 stitches, then the next row was 59, next row was 58, and so forth. Repeated that a few times around, hence my top. Looks like some kind of weird sock snake, doesn't it? There it is, the hat done. And I can confirm that a few hours in one of my local hospitals waiting for a procedure will give me plenty of time to complete this. And if I had the yarn, probably could have made a set of mitts to match. But hey ho, it's done and I like it, and I just could not be more chuffed with how well these colours held together. Got a couple of bits of overlap, but then that just makes it more orange. So I'm happy. Hello lovelies. Bit weaving heavy this month. It's the way the crafting goes. I show you what I make rather than make things to show you. Does that make sense? Sorry, that sounds a bit selfish, but this is my crafting, which I love you to share and to be here. But there is a danger, I think, with podcasters, and I've heard others speak about this, that you try to create things to create content, and that doesn't always mean you're enjoying what you're doing. So I'm more selfish than that. Sorry. I mentioned, talking of weaving, that I was going to make a blanket out of my handspun using commercial yarns for the warp and then handspun for the weft, and I've got the first panel done. So you can see where I've folded it up very badly, and you can see where my weft is different colours. No, my warp, well, you can see where my weft is different colours. You can see where my warp is different colours too. So it's giving a slightly checkered effect. What I'm doing is very basically 6 inches, 15 centimetres of each colour in blocks. So that's what I'm doing. I'm on the second one of these, and on the second one I have finished with this turquoisey sort of colour. I've got another one that's in a similar colour palette, so I've added that in, but otherwise I'll just change to something similar and just do to the next sort of 15 centimetre line and then change, and it'll be a little bit of a sort of scrappy looking thing, but that's fine. I'm not looking to make it a terribly coordinated sort of effect. It will be slightly different weights as we go along because my handspun is inconsistent at best, and certainly skein to skein is inconsistent, but I'm hoping it will work. I'm hoping that I'm within enough of a limit to make it work. So that's the first one for the handspun. Now this is handspun that I've already made, so handspun that you will have seen in previous podcasts. But it put me in mind of what is turning into my biggest ever spinning project. I think it was a couple of Christmases ago, himself very kindly got me some fibre as a gift, and it was a fade pack. So I had 5 different braids of fibre, slightly different each one. So a gradient pack, sorry, gradient fade, I guess it's kind of interchangeable terms in this case. And I haven't done anything with it yet for a few reasons. Firstly, I didn't want to mess it up. Secondly, it's Shetland, which I love the way it drafts. It's a bit like the Falklands Merino for that in terms of how it drafts, works for the way that I do stuff. But also, and forgive me for the ungratefulness that this portrays, I didn't really like the colours that much. It's quite dark and there's some nice sort of plummy purples in there, but it wasn't a set of braids that made me go, oh, I must make this yarn straight away. So I was giving some thought as to whether I combine it with other yarns or what I would do. Now in theory, being a set, if I was skilled enough and clever enough and spent time working it out enough, I would probably be able to make a sweater's quantity and have a gradient sweater. I am none of those things. So that hasn't happened. But I do have the first yarn spun, two lots of yarn spun. So the first one, this was all from World of Wool, I think, but I'll put on screen the company name. I think it was World of Wool. I'm probably wrong. So this is the first one, and I'm doing this all as a 2-ply, so I just split the braid in half and ply the 2 halves as singles and then ply them together. When I have anything left over, as I invariably do, I'm using it to ply into the next one so that we fade that colour as much as possible. So these are the first 2, and you can see that the second is a little lighter than the first. The third has more of a sort of purple in it, and less of the very dark sort of charcoaly grey towards black. So I think it will make an interesting spin and hopefully an interesting blanket. My thought process at the moment, subject to change, is that again I would do the 6-inch squares, or possibly a bit more, perhaps 8 to 10 inch, something like that, but start off with the darkest in one corner and kind of checkerboard them a bit, and either go dark to light across the diagonal of the blanket, or as a fade dark to light. So do it, rather than do the checkerboard, do first one dark, second one, next one, second one, yeah, and then go on. That's the theory at the moment. All plans subject to change, of course, but that's what I'm thinking at the minute. I am enjoying the weaving. It's something I haven't done for a long time, and after I finish these projects, it's probably something I won't do again for a long time, but I'm enjoying it. I was beginning to feel a bit guilty for not using the loom. The loom doesn't have feelings, the loom won't mind, but it felt like a nice way to use what I have, to use this handspun, because I'm unlikely to knit all of it, even the bits. I mean, I've made that hat this month and that sort of thing, but they tend to be smaller projects, whereas this will be a nice big project, as will the one that I'm spinning specifically for, and hopefully make some nice cosy blankets for those of mine who would like them. I think that's it for the moment. Cheers. Hello lovelies. For the last 2 years I have used the advents that I've received to make recalibrate sweaters. The first one was a plain sweater. I mean, obviously I modified it because I do, but it was basically the recalibrate sweater. And then last year I made a cardigan version with a hood. I was tempted to do the same, or I was tempted to do a crochet version this year, but then something came along that made me think, oh, here's a different idea. Now I think Barbara of the Flame and Fibre podcast is going to be doing the recalibrate. If you wanted to join in with her, I'm sure she'd be delighted. But when she suggested it and said, oh, I don't know if Lesley's doing the same, I'd already made the decision for this project. And I have one of you lovelies to thank for this, because when you say, oh, I've just finished this project, or I'm just working on this pattern, I always have a look. And very often I'll think, oh, that's very nice, and then think no more of it. Sometimes I'll think, oh, that's very nice, but not my style, not something I could make for anyone I know. You know, you just sort of think, oh, that's lovely, but not one I'm going to add to the list. And then every now and again you see one and you think, oh. And it could be because I'm on a bit of a colour work kick at the moment. But I am thankful to the lovely Dolores, who told me she was just finishing the Zyla by Natasha Hornby. And I went and looked at the pattern and I thought, oh. So I'm going to make one. And I'm going to use my advents, which means that obviously the colour work, and it's mosaic colour work in this particular pattern, the colour work is going to be in all different colours. That is not something that frightens me. Maybe it should sometimes, but it's not. So thank you, Dolores, for pointing me in the direction of that pattern. And yes, I look forward to making it. I'm still undecided on my main colour. Black springs to mind, but because I've got the stained glass cardigan on the go in black, I don't really want to do another with that effect. Grey sprang to mind, but I'm not sure. I've got some dark brown sort of chocolate colour, which was tempted by, but what I'm actually thinking is red. Not a scarlet red, a slightly deeper, more towards a burgundy, but not quite as dark as a burgundy, because that's what I've got a cone of in the stash. So I'm thinking of a quite a warm red, and I realise that means there will be strong contrast with some of the Advent colours and less of a contrast with some of the others, but that adds to the interest really. So that's the plan. Although I nearly changed my mind very quickly, not because of the pattern and the way it's written and the description and all, well, the description a little bit. I love words, I love reading, I enjoy poetry. I'm no expert on it, but I like hearing how words are used. To me, the right word in the right situation is a thing of joy. So I was a little surprised when I printed off this pattern, and it includes some words which I have looked into, and they are a quotation from Auguste Rodin. But you read the name of the pattern, you read the designer, and then it says, and you'll have to excuse the voice, but I can't stop myself, the main thing is to be moved, to hope, to tremble, to live. It's a knitting pattern, love. If that's the main thing for you, all power to you, but it's a knitting pattern. Very nice knitting pattern, beautiful knitting pattern, I would go so far as to say. But I'm not sure it's going to make me moved, hopeful, trembling, or living. But hey, we are all different. It just seemed, it was almost enough to put me off, but the pattern is so impressive to look at that I'm going to make it anyway. But it's a knitting pattern. Anyway, stop being a sceptical old dragon, Lesley. Whatever you're making with your advents, if you're having one, I hope you enjoy it. Love to know what you're making, and we'll make things together in spirit. Hello, lovelies. As well as doing some weaving this month, I've also been making some cards. You may remember, sorry, I'll say that again. You may remember a few months ago I was making a few birthday cards by embroidering onto card, basically. Well, I've been doing that for Christmas. So here are a few. As you can see, very simple shapes. And I'm channeling the lovely Jude of Rewilding Jude, formerly of Stranded Dye Works. And I'm sure you're all watching his exploits and the most extravagant chicken coop in Scotland and all the things he's doing in his house. But there was something he said quite a few months ago which really resonated with me, which was, the best thing to use is the thing you have. And I'm very enthusiastic about that idea at the moment. So these are all things I've used, things I've bought in the past thinking, oh, I'll do that one day. Well, this is the day. So again, very simple shapes, but I've got the cards, I've got beads, I've got embroidery threads. So I've been making lots of Christmas tree Christmas cards, but not only Christmas tree. Candles, stars, more stars, baubles, all sorts of things. And I've really enjoyed doing it. I just do one a day. They take different lengths of time depending on the complexity of the pattern, but I've enjoyed doing it. I don't know how many I will have made when it comes time to writing and sending Christmas cards. Again, I'll use what I have. I do have other commercially printed charity Christmas cards to send where I've run out of these, but I've enjoyed the process and it's been a fun thing to do, and it feels like it's using some of the many, many, many craft supplies that I have. So it's felt useful in that sense as well. That's that. Cheers. Hello lovelies, it's time for the roundup of whips and life update stuff. And first of all, I'm going to share with you the details of a fantastic gift that I received from the lovely Angie. She gave permission for me to say that she'd sent it, so thank you. Thank you so much. She even remembered Heidi with a little lamb chop dog toy. I remember lamb chop when I was kind of yay high. I think it was on Sunday tea time, that sort of time on TV. But a lovely soft little plushy dog toy there. So on Heidi's behalf, thank you. And on my behalf, thank you. Oh my goodness, it would take too long to go through all of these items. This is like an Advent Plus of different goodies. We've got sweets, we've got biscuits, sorry, we've got candy, we've got cookies, we've even got stuff to put into hot milk to make hot chocolate. That will be my Christmas morning beverage. There is such a selection of in here. It weighs a lot. This box is full and I am very grateful. That is so kind of you to send that, so thank you very much, and thank you on behalf of Heidi as well. Just couldn't believe it when I opened it, and I was going through the individual things, and I sit in a chair here and himself sits opposite, and then I'd pull another few things out. He says, "Is it still going?" I said, "Yep, still going, I'll let you know when we're finished." You know, just so generous, so thank you. Oh goodness. Obviously I will share them with friends and loved ones, and I will space them out. Those days are gone. So, but thank you, just such a kind thing to do. Works in progress, I've kind of pared down my list. I had a list of pretty much all of my active projects, and it felt as if I was taking a very long time to get anywhere with anything. So I've pared it down to a DK project, a 4-ply weight project, a crochet blanket, a knit blanket, and a small project. So things like the hat I showed you would come under the small project category. I just felt as if I was getting nowhere slowly on a lot of things. So this does mean that some of the projects that you've seen me working on, like the stained glass sweater, the bright axis jumper, a cardigan, they've been put to one side. The crochet blocks blanket have been put to one side, and I'll bring them back into rotation as other things are worked on, are finished. Also in the mornings I work on my large wrap, which has probably had the most progress on it, so I'll show you that in a little while. But to go with the first of those first, we have the DK project, and this is the Salty Days sweater, and it's top-down sweater, and when you last saw it I had just started the waist ribbing, but I have now completed a sleeve as well. Now because these sleeves are ribbed, at this stage it does look very long and narrow, but obviously it has a fair amount of flex, and I will block it and stretch it out when I block it. It's mostly merino, and most of these yarns have a high merino content, so it will probably go a bit looser anyway as I block it and as I wear it. But we are getting there. So bottom welt done, first sleeve done, onto the second sleeve, and the sleeves are fairly quick, so hopefully it won't be too long before this one is finished, and then I can move on to the next DK project. And I don't actually have another DK garment project on the needles at the moment, so that might mean a new cast on. That would be fun. The 4-ply project that I've elected to stick with for the time being, and I've chose this because it's for a friend and I would like to get it done so that I can give it to the friend. It's not going to be done in time for Christmas, but her birthday's in January, so I'm hopeful that there or thereabouts she'll have this. This is the Lesley cardigan by Bay & Bergerin Designs, and the first half is now completed. This sort of circular pattern is an addition of my own. It's worked sideways, as you can see, from the centre back out to the end of the sleeve, and my row gauge was a little short, so I've put these in to compensate for that short gauge. So they have helped it become the length that it should be. I've just started the second half, that's as far as I've got so far. So we're on the way, but because I've been concentrating on these fewer projects and doing them more often, I'm getting more done and it feels like progress. And of course these things, they're a virtuous circle, and you feel the impetus. I've got to stop moving my hand. I'll use both. Yeah, because you then feel the progress is happening, it gives you more enthusiasm to carry on and to keep working on the project. So that's project number 2. And that's the Liz Vierker by Bay & Berger in Designs. All pattern details are in the notes below. The yarn is an Australian yarn and it's Queensland collection, I think, but again, it's all in the notes below. So that's the second project that I'm working on. The third is the crochet blanket. Now, I am slowing down a little on this at the moment. I have been getting a little bit of wrist pain, and it seems worse when I'm crocheting, which makes sense because there's more twist when I'm crocheting. So it may be that this sits back for a little while as well. We'll see how we go, but next month's going to be slightly different because of the Advents, and I'll come on to that later. But I had done the central panel and a couple of the cable panels last time you saw it. I put 4 cable panels round. This yarn is kind of losing, the colouring in this yarn is losing all patterning anyway. But here is a shell pattern for this next panel. And for the latest one, I'm just doing a sort of central lace down the panel. Because I started doing 4 matching and I thought, does it matter? You want to keep the weight about right, so something with holes in, something with holes in. But it doesn't have to be the same one. So that's how we're doing with that. It's one of those projects where I felt as if I had a huge amount of yarn, but being crochet eats through the yarn pretty quickly. So I don't know that this is going to be an enormous blanket, but it'll be more than a good lap gown size, I think. So it should work nicely as a sitting on the sofa type blanket. Knit blanket is the other one. I knew I'd put it here somewhere. So the knit blanket is the mitre square blanket that I've been working on, and again it's coming along pretty well because I'm picking it up more regularly. So here is a marker for where I was at last time. That was here, and I've finished along that row and started the 3rd row of squares. So just regular mitre blankets, 51 stitches is my starting size. I do 8 rows of the what I'm calling the main colour, and it's giving it a nice window pane effect. The rest is all scraps, leftovers, bits and pieces that are left from other projects or found in the bottom of the cupboard somewhere. Where I have, where I'm changing colours within a square, I'm trying to avoid the kind of pearl bump colour change. So I am working pearl stitches just where I need to change colour. So that's what I'm doing with that one, and that's coming along quite nicely. Because it is the individual squares, it's one of those projects where you feel as if you are making regular progress, because you feel each square is like a little mini project of its own. So, the one that I'm working on every day is my early morning project. So I tend to wake up relatively early compared to himself. And I get up, make a cup of tea, and I come down here and work on this particular project. And even as at the moment himself is away, I still get up and have a cup of tea, do an hour on this, and then go and have my shower, take the dog out, start my day. So that's what we've been doing. And this is the large wrap that I'm making. And again, I'm concentrating on this because I'd like to get it finished. I'd like to use it this winter, even if it's the latter part of this winter. And it is coming along pretty well. I don't have a marker for where it was last time you saw it, but there's quite a lot of it. Now, the piece that I'm measuring it against, the item that I was bought, that I'm doing this as a knitted version of, I think it's 88 inches long, so it is a long wrap. But I'm just using different colours in sort of similar palettes. There's some mohair and lace weight together at the end with some beads. As I get towards the middle, I've got some different coloured mohair and lace weight that I'm going to put together, so that the bit that's kind of closest to my neck will be the soft fluffy bit. I'm lucky I don't have a mohair allergy, so that will just be nice and warm and cosy. And I will go through all the yarns once it's done, but again, some of them are scraps, some of them are leftovers, and some of them are total balls. Which sounds as if I'm being rude about it. It's total balls, but sorry. Yes. So these stripes are coming up pretty thick. Now, as a slight aside, I'm going to hold this close to the camera so you can see that it is a very simple stocking stitch item with just some yarn overs. So these stripes up the piece are yarn over, centered decrease, double decrease, yarn over. And everything else is to do with the colours of the yarns. Now, I had an appointment at the garage the other day. I had to take my car in. They said it could take up to an hour, so I thought, well, I'll just take my knitting and wait. Another lady was in the waiting room. And she said, oh, you're knitting. Oh, can I see I knit? Yeah. And she came over and said, oh, it's lovely. She particularly liked this, which is a boucle yarn. And I said, oh, what sort of things do you knit? She said, like this, Fair Isle. There is no Fair Isle in this. Whether she meant to have a comma in that sentence that didn't come through as she was speaking or not, I don't know. But it sounded like she said, like this, Fair Isle. This isn't. I just said, oh, lovely. And then they called me to say my car was ready, and I was grateful. So those are the projects I've been mainly working on. As I said earlier, I'm doing the Xyla shawl with my Advent. So my main projects that I will be working on are, I'm still planning to do that wrap early in the morning. The Xyla will be my kind of main knitting, and then when I finish the colour for the day, I'll then move on to something else, probably the Lesley, because that has the deadline that I most want to get done by. So at the end of December, I will have 3 projects that I've been working on, possibly a few others, but a few little bits, but generally it will be those 3 plus any weaving and spinning that I'm doing. So that will be slightly different next month. After that, I'll move back to the DK project, fingering project, blanket, blanket, small. Sounds like the weirdest dance moves you'll ever hear. So that's the plan for moving forward. We'll go through phases of these things. Sometimes you want to have like all your whips to hand because you want to crack on, and other times you reach a point, as I did, where it just feels as if you're going nowhere. So you kind of hone in and focus a little bit. So that's where we're at. I will go back to the other projects, but it feels as if I'm just doing like 2 rows on everything once a fortnight, when really I could crack on and get a better sense of achievement for what I'm doing. So that's the plan. So life update, health update. I told you I was in hospital last week for a procedure that I ended up waiting for, and the hat got finished, so that's good. That's all been straightforward. Had another chemotherapy this month. I'm on a 4-weekly cycle, so it's pretty much every month. Got another one next week. Also have an oncology appointment next week, so we'll get some results following my latest scan, so we'll see what's happening there. Judging by how I'm feeling, I get the sense that things are pretty stable. Whether the chemo is actually reducing any of the tumours or just stopping them getting bigger, we'll know more when we see the oncologist. Certainly I don't feel as if I'm getting kind of weird aches in strange places, matron. So hopefully this means that things are stable and managed for the moment. Everything we're dealing with is just for the moment, and we'll see where it goes from there. So that's kind of that. As I said, himself is away at the moment. He's also away in December. He's in Dublin. This is all for football. And thank you to the lovely person who is in Dublin and who said when himself's there you can come around and have a cup of tea. That is very kind, and were I travelling with him I would be knocking on your door with a packet of biscuits saying put the kettle on. But I'm not actually going to Dublin with him, so thank you very much for the kind offer, but I won't send him round. You don't want that. Apart from that, just the usual sort of winter Christmas preparations, seeing friends. Had to cancel a couple of events with friends for reasons of not feeling too clever, which was a shame. That's disappointing because I felt as though I was sort of managing my energies pretty well, but you don't always know you've overdone it until you've overdone it. So that was that. But generally, touching lots of wood, doing okay. Actually, these needles are wood, that'll do. Yeah, doing okay and sort of plodding on fairly happily. So hopefully that will continue. Christmas plans haven't been confirmed, but we are seeing my family mid-December. Because a lot of my family have worked or do work as nurses, obviously many of them have to work over the Christmas period. So we never commit to spending Christmas with each other, but we do have a day beforehand where we spend the day together, swap presents, not opening the presents, but just swap them so that everyone's got them in the right house by the day itself. And that's happening mid-month. This means that probably next month, Bev, my sister, will be on the podcast. You have been warned. Every month I do the go on to the Zoom call hosted by Barbara of Flame and Fibre, along with Valerie of A Visit with Nana and Papa, and we set the date for the next one, which is mid-December. Do come along, they're a lot of fun. I'm inviting you to other people's party here, but if you wanted to come along, the links are on Ravelry in the Flame and Fibre podcast group. There's a sticky thread which gives you the links and tells you when the next one is and the times and that sort of thing. But I said, oh, I might not be around for very long for the next one because Bev's here. They practically cheered, like, yay, Bev's here, get Bev on. Well, I'll just go out then, you can have Bev, that's fine. So yeah, she will be here. We don't have much planned, possibly going to see some Christmas lights. OGs will know that there's a village near to where I live where they put quite a few lights up at Christmas and raise money for the local hospice. Normally go there with my mate Mandy, so we're going to do that with Bev as well. And the rest is just sort of plodding on. Arranging a few cups of tea with friends, get-togethers, the usual things that you try and do at Christmas time, and not being a religious person, I'm not big on the religious side of Christmas, but I do love the wishing people well and making the effort to spend time with people and that sort of thing. So although what many would consider to be the message of Christmas is a bit lost on me, a lot of the spirit of Christmas I feel is kind of in the air, and all power to it. So I think that's about it for this month, but I hope you're all well. I hope that you're enjoying what you're doing. I hope that you're able to spend time doing the things that bring you joy. As I said earlier, I will be doing 2 things in December. One is the December Mal, so on the 1st I will open the thread on Ravelry. So just post on there what crafts you're working on, whether they're gifts or advents or just escaping from busyness and just taking a few minutes to do some crafting. Let us know what you're up to, and there'll be prizes in January for those. And the other thing I'll be doing is Vlogmas, which I'll be recording every day and putting up probably on a Friday. Makes sense to do that. I'll probably do the Fridays, the first 3 Fridays of the month, and then one on Christmas Eve, because that will then cover opening all of the Advents. So looking forward to that. And I'm hoping to show you the project. Well, yes, but the progress on the project of the Xyla shawl using the Advents, and you'll see it practically as it happens. So thanks everyone for being here. Take very good care of yourselves and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.